Welcome back to the channel, guys. I am the Ginger Gamer, and today I have a special treat for you. Well, at least it's a special treat for me. I am reviewing The Last of Us Part 2. So, is this everything I wanted it to be? Is it the swan song that I wanted for Ellie and Joel? Is this game going to break this Ginger's heart? Does a Ginger even have a heart to be broken? This game has been in development for 6 years. 2014, right after they finished The Last of Us Remastered, they started developing for this game. So it's 2 years longer than how much time they had for the original. And you can really tell, both in the quality and in the gargantuan length of this game. So let's start out with the story, because first and foremost, in the first game, the story was king. The story was what drove me. Gameplay was fun, but story was number one. So it's been 5 years since the events of The Last of Us. And Ellie and Joel are back in Jackson, Wyoming with Joel's brother, Tommy, and they're living in this city. It's huge. Settlement, whatever you want to call it. They got electricity, they have homes. They are really settling into normal life. And this is where you see Papa Joel, is what I'll refer to him as, because he is definitely fully taken on the role, the mantle of father to Ellie. And I really liked seeing Joel this way. I have to be honest. In the first game, he was much more cold and calculated, and he very untrusting. And I have heard from people that talk about how this game plays out, that what occurs in the game would never happen because Joel is this way. Well, guess what? Joel is not that person anymore. He's not the person from the first one. He's not even the person from the end of the first one when he risked everything to save Ellie. This is no longer a Joel that is ruthless and cutthroat and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. This is a man who is comfortably sitting back into a father role with Ellie. He's let his guard down. That's what I think kind of is a catalyst to the story, and you have to believe that, and I did. I believed the way Joel was speaking and his mannerisms, that he had really started to trust people and see the good in people. Now, the world is still in ruins due to the cordyceps infection. There's no cure. We all know why that is. This world is brutally savage. And believe me, it lets it all hang out, literally. So let's talk characters, because that's what this is all about. This is a story-driven, three-dimensional. I mean, if you skip a cutscene, shame on you. That's what this game is about. Everything else builds towards this. It's the foundation for this. These characters are incredible. I care so much about what happens to these characters because of the nuances, because of the small conversations, because of the long conversations, because of the cutscenes where I am just drawn in, and I will never skip a cutscene in this game, because what's the point of playing this game if you're going to skip cutscenes? So Joel, what can I say about my main man, Joel? He is my favorite character in any video game, possibly in any form of entertainment. Good, bad, or indifferent, Joel is who he is. He's a little rough around the edges. He's done a lot of bad things, but he's also done a lot of good things. He's far from perfect, is what I'm trying to say. But I think his motivations are pure. And I can relate to him as a father, willing to do whatever it takes for Ellie, even if that means too much. Being overbearing, being overprotective, to the point where you're resented. I can see that. So in the first game, you see Joel as a man who loses everything. You watch him lose his entire world right before him. And if you're a parent like I am, that's your whole world. If that's gone, you've got nothing. And you start to see over the course of that game this long, slow, painful process of him getting it back with Ellie, or as close to getting it back outside of him being able to reunite with his daughter. But that's what I'm trying to say, is Joel's not the same person. Once you realize that, once you accept that, then what's to come will make more sense. So Ellie, just like Joel, one of my favorite characters of all time. It's character first. It's her character that shines through. If you didn't like what they did with her in the Left Behind DLC, then you might be in a disposition to not like what happens here. And I get that. But hear me out. She's a great character, but people are many things. They're not just one thing. And I love her character. I love her witty humor. I love her potty mouth. I mean, the way she incorporates and drops bombs, it's hilarious. And that's her. Her character shines through. Always. I never got tired of playing as Ellie. She's my favorite part of the game. You really see Ellie come into her own in this game. She feels capable of doing everything that is asked of her in the game, or that's required of her in the game. And I feel like she's earned it, everything that she's gone through the first game. And Ellie was always even before she met Joel, able to take care of herself. It obviously hasn't hurt that she has a father figure mentor in Joel. So everything that she had already had, plus what Joel brought to the table, she's a force to be reckoned with. And I never once felt like playing as her that she couldn't do what she was doing. I was always rooting for her. I was always behind her. So there's a scene where Joel takes Ellie as a surprise to a museum. It's got dinosaurs. And her reaction to the dinosaurs, it's totally Ellie. And you also get to see her swim.
Joel.
We're here.
Oh my god, it is a dinosaur!
And it is.
Joel!
Surprise.
Holy shit. Oh, it's a motherfucking dinosaur.
Careful.
Climbing a dinosaur!
Yeah, I can see that. Just don't die falling off of one.
Look at me! I'm on a motherfucking dinosaur!
Oh, what are you doing? Don't jump. Just climb down.
Ah!
Hey, hey!
Oh, did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, wasn't it awesome?
It's awesome that you didn't break anything.
So where Joel and Ellie are different is that Joel is content where he is and Ellie is not. She is still wrestling with the events from the last game involving the Fireflies. She is not ready to put that one to rest, even if that means fracturing her and Joel's relationship. So adding to the story, a brand new character named Abby. Now, Abby is like the dream child of Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscle from Brussels, and Ronda Rousey. It's funny because Tommy, Joel's brother, even refers to her being built like an ox. And she is. It's one of the first things you're going to notice. This chick is jacked. What you get about Abby right off the bat, she's been trained. She has been conditioned. She can be very cold and calculated. She is a soldier first and foremost, and she is part of a group called the Washington Liberation Front, or the WLF, or as their enemies call them, the Wolves. As far as Abby's inclusion in the story, she is also a major character. Minor spoilers, that her inclusion in the story could have been greatly reduced in some areas to help the overall pacing of the main overarching narrative. I just want to be clear that I don't think she's a poorly written character. In fact, I think every single character in this game, no matter how big or small, was carefully thought out, incredibly acted, captured, written. I mean, it's just, there are no bad characters. Abby is the main driving force for Ellie's narrative, and she is the reason why I had to see this game through to the end. So the story starts out in Jackson, Wyoming, like I said. However, most of the game takes place in Seattle. There are other diverse locations, all beautifully rendered, all incredible and fun to explore. The game does a great job of giving you the same motivation that Ellie has. And it's very rare that a game, even though you understand the intention, you understand what you're supposed to do, you as the player don't always necessarily have that same drive. So Ellie and Dina is Ellie's romantic interest in the game, they set out to Seattle, Washington to locate the WLF, or the Washington Liberation Front. Ellie wants answers that only they can give. Now, throughout this game, you're going to come into contact with the WLF. You're going to come into contact with a group called Scars, or that's what they call them. They call themselves the Seraphites. Of course, you're going to come into contact with the Infected. You've got all your guys. You've got the Runners. You've got the Stalkers. You've got the Clickers, which are my favorite. You've got the Bloaters. And then you also have a new group of Infected called the Shamblers. So you've got a lot to deal with. So that's how the game starts. And it is masterful in the way that it draws you in. Like I said, I was hooked for the first 15 hours, okay? For the first 15 hours. Yes, you heard me right. This game is at least, if you rush through, twice as long as the original. I spent 38 hours playing this game. Here is where the game, for me personally, started to show its one major flaw. Its pacing. My biggest criticism of this game is with the length and pacing. Right off the bat, without spoiling anything, there are absolutely too many flashbacks. There are literally flashbacks within flashbacks. I am in the inception of flashbacks. And I remember that happening and thinking, who at Naughty Dog thought that this game needed to be 40 hours? Who pushed that? Thankfully, the gameplay loop is incredible and better than ever. It's very fun and engaging. I can't stress that enough. If it wasn't for that, it would have been it would have been very hard to get through some of the parts of this game. But the gameplay is just buttery smooth and so much fun. There's at least 2 games here. Bottom line. The reason the first game was so good is that they trimmed off all the fat. And this game, unfortunately, is full of it. Thankfully, when the narrative starts to feel like it's dragging or taking too long, gameplay is king. It's smoother and more polished than ever before. It far exceeds the fun I had in the first game, and that's saying something. In this game, I think the first 10 or 15 hours is story before gameplay, even though the gameplay is incredible. So it's heightened to this incredible level. Where it starts to get bogged down, the gameplay rises above the story, and I played it simply because it was fun to play. The gameplay is the only reason that is, for me, enjoyable to play when I'm not taking control of Ellie. Some of the new mechanics. You've got the ability to go prone. You've got the ability to dodge, and now you've got the ability to jump. The jumping feels a little weird, but I like it. It just gives me another way to explore this world. There are sections, there is a particular section that is huge and feels completely like you could go anywhere. It feels like an open world. It's almost overwhelming. I really enjoyed the adventure of it, the true sense of exploring for exploring's sake. There are also some new weapons, melee as well as firearms. You've got your pistol, sniper, shotgun setup like you would expect. It is cool. You are able to craft now a silencer for your pistol, and it is great for staying in stealth when a bow just won't do. With the melee weapons, you have your standard, pipe, small axe. This game, though, gives you the ability to pick up larger weapons. There is it's almost like a mallet. I'm not sure exactly what I would even call it, but the thing hits hard. When you hit somebody in the chest with this, it takes them down one hit, and it is a great, satisfying feeling. The melee combat is crunchy and visceral and violent, and you spend time looking at these animations, seeing the characters' eyes when they die. Even if you pan around to Ellie, you see her eyes. It's incredible. Melee combat's incredible. All combat has been greatly improved. Crafting is back, and it's better than ever. Now listen, there are way more crafting tables in this game. I felt like there was times where it was just crafting table, crafting table, crafting table, And guess what? I like the change. The first one, crafting tables seemed like they were much more spread apart. This one, I like it, okay? Because I'm always looking, I'm always searching, so I want to be able to upgrade my weapons as soon as possible. One of the things with upgrading the weapons that's really cool and it's new is you actually see them modify it. It doesn't just make a click noise and boom, now you have extra ammo or extended magazine. There are some sections that I would call, for lack of a better word, run for your life moments where you're running from lots and lots of zombies or you're running from lots and lots of infected and you're not really supposed to try to kill them all. And they are sprinkled throughout so they never overstay their welcome. Now the bow in this game is one of the best feeling bows in any game. And I would even put it right up neck and neck with the bow from Horizon Zero Dawn. Now let's talk about the AI, both the enemy AI and the companion AI. Now, your AI partners, you're going to realize, and I realized very early on in the game, that they are actually helpful. I felt like in the first game, Ellie did have her moments, but for the most part, they were scripted. In this game, it feels like it's much more on the fly. The enemies are smarter, okay? The enemies are, they feel like once they know something's off, even if they're not in full alert mode, they are searching for you. Okay, so they're like going around corners and they're looking under tables, and I'm sure you've heard about some of this, but it is very immersive. It's very interesting and adds a lot of tension. The enemies also do something that I don't think I've ever seen in another game. So you'll be taking people out, for instance, okay, whether everyone's aware or not. So you shoot someone, and if someone's behind them and they see it, they say their name. It's incredible. It happens throughout the whole game. So let me tell you, it feels a whole lot more real when you're killing a Tina than a bad guy. And there's concern in their voice. The people who recorded this, it's like there was not a piece of dialogue that was written that wasn't carefully thought out. And this adds to the realism of this world that you're in. As in the first game, there's a lot of stealth, or you have the option to do a lot of stealth. And believe me, honestly, I think both ways are fun because the gameplay is so great, but the stealth gameplay is incredibly satisfying and equally difficult to pull off. And that's why it's so rewarding. Now moving on to graphics and animations, there's no surprise that this next iteration of the Naughty Dog engine is top-notch and looks incredible. The Last of Us Part 2 looks as good as God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Death Stranding. I mean, of course it does. The animations that they improved, especially when fighting melee and the new dodge mechanic, everything feels very natural. This game also ran at a steady 30 frames per second. It felt smoother than the original, even though the original ran at 30 as well. So the bottom line is, I am thankful that there are studios like Naughty Dog that are putting out quality single-player, narrative-driven experiences for us to enjoy. And whether you love it or hate it, you have to admit it made you feel something. If you got spoiled by the leaks and it upset you, it made you feel something. And I would highly recommend that even if you were upset, you should still play the game. It is worth your $60. This game reminds me why single-player driven narrative games aren't going anywhere. There's something that I get from this game that I could not get from a multiplayer game. Make no mistake, and don't misunderstand my criticisms, The Last of Us Part 2, it's a masterpiece. If you love the first game, I highly recommend you play this game. Just forget what everyone says. Just play the game. Once you play the game, then let me know how you feel. If you still hate it, that's great. That's your opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. But if you're at all interested in this game, you need to play it. You need to give it a shot all the way through. Feel the hurt and move on. Play it to completion. I was not happy with the end of the story, but I was satisfied. And I thought about that really long and hard. I was not happy with the end of the story, but I was satisfied. So did this game break this Ginger's heart? It did, in a good way. The things that happened in this game had to happen. There had to be motivation, otherwise what's the point of the game? You already had Joel and Ellie at the end of the first game. You could have just thought that they lived happily ever after. Well, that was Joel's story. This is Ellie's story. And it's beautiful. It gets my Ginger seal of approval and a 9 out of 10. Go play it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Ginger out.